We're back live with the second part of our super bumper review show. We, of course, the Tea and Tights podcast for Great British Wrestling, featured for Great British Wrestling, as featured on bodyslam.net and the Jonas Podcasting Network. I'm joined by two fantastic guests. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. Mark, would you like to go first?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Mark O'Brien. Now I've been writing with Body Slam and wrestling in various different promotions and websites the past, say, 6 months or so. I've appeared sporadically with yourself, Andy, covering primarily Irish wrestling shows, be it OTT, Fight Factory Pro Wrestling, Titanic, or more recently Phoenix Wrestling down in Cork as well. So yeah, I've been over with Kieran last weekend over in London at the Royal Quest shows. Andy's very kindly invited us on today to kind of run through our thoughts and how the shows went.
Yeah, and I'm Kieran RH. I'm for Wrestle In at Wrestle INN. I've got the New Japan podcast where each episode we dive into a different wrestler that's got some history in Japan, talk about who they are and everything. And I'm always posting tons of mostly New Japan content on my Twitter at KieranRH93.
Super, and I, of course, Mr. Andrew Morandi to most. I am the British and European wrestling content provider for bodyslam.net, and the Tea and Tights podcast is available via the bodyslam.net YouTube channel, as well as the Jonas Podcasting Network, where we have huge amounts of amazing content on both of those platforms. We're here today. We're going to be talking about WXW's World Tag Team Festival, the Night 2 and Night 3 shows. I did Night 1 as well as the Femme Fatale show earlier with Big Daddy Dan, who did the 1PW review. Kieran and Mark are going to be telling us all about New Japan Royal Quest Night 1 and Night 2. I'm super stoked to hear about both of these incredible nights. Do you want to just give me a quick what were your thoughts of the venue and everything like that now?
Yeah, Kieran, I'll let you go first. You probably
I've been there.
I do, yeah.
I've been there before for a Ring of Honor show, actually. It was a very similar setup. I feel like it's quite good. You're always on top of the action. Like there's not a bad seat in the house. Me and Mark we were in the front row both nights. I end up in the same seat both nights. Mark was opposite me the second night. But yeah, no, a cracking time. The atmosphere was electric, as you'd expect from a British wrestling crowd that's been devoid of, New Japan talent for a few years now. It was a fucking tremendous weekend. I hope I'm allowed to swear. Sorry.
Yes, you are.
It was a fantastic weekend. It was great to have so much talent back over, and I feel like they really all took that extra step to give the London crowd something special.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it completely exceeded my expectations. It was incredibly well run by the Rev Pro and New Japan guys. I think the Rev Pro crew, be it from the London School of Wrestling, the Portsmouth School of Wrestling, really went out of the way to make everybody feel welcome. Everything incredibly well organized. The meet and greets beforehand, both days were very smoothly run. Both sets of professional wrestlers on the days were very friendly, accommodating. Some were visibly very hungover, which is funny. A couple of the Bullet Club guys were quite abusive, which I enjoyed. But it was fantastic, really good. And as the shows themselves exceeded all my expectations, because outside of the FTR Aussie Open match, I wasn't sure what to expect, as some of the matches were kind of similar from day to day. But again, they really went out of the way to kind of put on a show for the fans, to really interact during matches and make people have fun in the audience as well.
That's excellent to hear. I was in Oberhausen, which is the usual venue for WXW. It's kind of like their home is the Turbinenhalle. It is a great little warehouse venue, good packed out for both Night 2 and Night 1. Night 3 actually dropped off a little bit on the attendance wise, but they missed probably the best show of the weekend. So that's their fault and not ours. And it was a fantastic weekend. It just kind of kicked off on the second night. It was Violence is Forever versus Shigehiro Irie and Fuminori Abe, who are Japanese wrestlers from... I know Fuminori Abe is Big Japan. Shige, is he...
I think he's more independent than anything, maybe. I'm not sure if he's specifically with someone.
Yeah, he's actually been over to Europe quite a few times, and you get to see him a lot in Progress a couple of years ago, and he's been doing great work with WXW. May kicked off the show against against Kevin Q and Dominic Guarini. Violence is Forever. This was brutal. This was one hell of a way to kick off Night 2. These guys literally kicked the crap out of each other. At one point, Fuminari Abe, he headbutted Kevin Q so hard, Kevin Q was literally pissed him down with blood down his face. It was a violent encounter, but it was so good as well. And the crowd at the Turban Hall, they ate up every minute of it. And for an opening match to actually receive a standing ovation is something to behold. I've never been to a show where the actual opening match has received a standing ovation, which was fully deserved, because this was strong style, I guess, at its best, mixed with a bit of American independent wrestling. Both of these teams were just really, really good. It was eventually Violence is Forever who picked up the win. It was their first win of the tournament, and I'll go over the tables right at the end of this review. The tag team champions were out next. Rotten Flot, which is rotten and disgusting. They took on Amboss, a team of Robert Dreisker and Icarus, who usually partners with the Arrows of Hungary, but due to the fact that his partner's been injured, it was Robert Dreisker who took his place. You would never know that they weren't a proper tag team, though, because Robert Dreisker just does everything that Dover would usually do for Icarus. Icarus flies around the ring. He's got great technical wrestling. Robert Dreisker is one of the best big guys in Europe. He really knows how to use his weight well. And Rotten Flot, who are usually despised by the crowd, are less despised than Amboss currently. So they were getting the cheers and the crowd support. It kind of just spilled into the crowd very early on, and eventually both teams got counted out. Oh, no, sorry. They had tied Nikita Charisma's hands to the post, and while they were beating Michael Schenkenberg, they got counted out, and Charisma had slid back into the ring with his hands still tied to the post and managed to get the victory for his team. So that was quite unique. I'd never seen that done before in a match. It was Chris Brooks and Masahiro Takanashi, the CDK team, Calamari Drunken Kings. They put on a hell of a show in night one, receiving lots of fan support, and they were taking on the French luchadors, Aguil Blanc and Senza Volto. I know Senza Volto's done quite a lot around Europe for quite some time. He's got a bit of a name. Aguil Blanc is his young trainee, really starting to make his name in Europe. He's been so over with the WXW audience, and they absolutely kicked ass. They just this was another incredible match that probably only went about 13 minutes, because every match had a 15-minute time limit, which I kind of enjoyed because no match overstayed its welcome. And really great match, which Senza Volto and Aguil Blanc picked up the win in. And again, there was at least half the audience were off their feet for that one as well. We were treated to Lavaniel having to overcome Norman Harris's goons, which are Dante Calebro and Joe Keys, who I believe are ROH or former ROH trainees. So they had been over in WXW as part of the Wildcard show, which I'm not going to be reviewing for this one. Otherwise, we'd be here forever. We then had the winner of the Femme Fatale, which was Alice Inc. versus the WXW champion, the witch bitch of pro wrestling, Baby Allison. This was short. Very, very short. And I mean like 5 minutes maybe. And Alice Inc. did come away with the victory in another superb match. One match I did miss out on actually was Sanity. Eric Young over teaming with Axel Tiska. They were supposed to be taking on the Pretty Bastards, but the Pretty Bastard had some sort of falling out during night one. So Maggot came down to the ring without Ahura, and despite some little bits of flurry in offense, pretty much got squashed by the tag team of Sanity, Axeman and Eric Young. Maggot still got a nice applause from the crowd. Then it was the main event of the show, which was Tristan Archer defending the WXW Unified World Championship against Speedball Mike Bailey. And Speedball Mike Bailey, he really has a great match anytime he's performing. There's literally no bad match that Speedball can have. And him and that Tristan Archer really absolutely killed it. I would probably say the match that Speedball had with Bobby Guns was a little bit better, but this was still an amazing match altogether, and just such a great second night to really solidify just how good this tournament was going to be by the end of it. Due to the results of the tag team matches, every team had 3 points on the board, so it was literally all to play for on the final night, night 3. And I will get to that once Mark and Kieran tell us about Royal Quest. Is there any questions you'd like to ask about some of the matches?
What, WXW matches? I didn't even know. It was their big tag week tournament. I didn't even know what was going on because I was just so invested in coming in for New Japan. New Japan's my bread and butter. I know it's like their biggest weekend, and lots of people do go over from Europe, like yourself going over, I imagine, from the UK somewhere, flying over to Germany for it. You know, I know lots of you guys do that specifically for this weekender.
Yeah, and you could tell that because, I met so many British fans out there, which was quite surprising.
Yeah.
I really wasn't expecting it, and everyone was just so nice as well. I did go have dinners during the breaks with many of the other fans, and we just talked about things. And literally everybody asked if they would go back for 16 Carat next year. Everybody said, yeah, we're coming back for 16 Carat.
Brilliant.
On my star rating, we give a sugar rating. We are tea and tie, so we put sugar in our tea, and I would give this one 4 sugars. It was a great show. Go on, lads. Tell me about New Japan.
Yeah, well, before even further, I was delighted to see at the weekend like LJ Cleary and Manic DeReese and others were making appearances across the show. Like I knew LJ was heading over just from training with them but like Kieran, my kind of focus for the whole weekend was very much getting excited about Royal Quest. And then even I know a few people who are competing on the 1PW show. So like for me, it was kind of just an external outside of the UK show that wasn't really on my periphery. But delighted to hear it went so well. And the amount of people, like you were even saying yourself, how well you're treated by the WXW people, you know, on the media point of view. So I'm delighted everything went well. Really look forward to hear how the 16 Carat Gold tournament goes next for you. The Royal Quest show, as we touched on earlier, Kieran was lucky or unfortunate enough to sit beside me for the first night. It was brilliant to meet somebody who you kind of follow online, or you kind of follow the work, be it from WrestleLane or if you're on Twitter as well, Kieran. Just for somebody who's got a far more rounded and informed view, particularly around Japanese wrestling. Like obviously my kind of priorities would have been attending the show mainly for watching Aussie Open FTR. And I love Aussie Open from watching them with Rev Pro, Progress, and OTT and that, and then FTR, I just think are gods of wrestling to me personally anyway. But no, it was brilliant. And just in terms of like even the amount of European people that are regularly kind of competing around the circuit and how well they are featured across both days. Be like Dan Maloney, Michael Oku, Ricky Knight Jr., and then guys who kind of came on the second day who'd appeared the day before for 1PW, like Robbie X and that. The young guns, Luke Jacobs, Ethan Allen, before Ethan Allen unfortunately decided to take a step away. It was brilliant to see how well they are featured, and they weren't just brought in as like cannon fodder as such. They were opening matches across both days, given a big opportunity, a big platform, and everybody delivered. And it was great because it was such a Rev Pro London-based audience by and large. Everybody was familiar with them and with their work. And it was great to see on the second day someone mixing up with the more Japanese talent as well. That was kind of one of the major highlights for me, just seeing how they weren't just kind of shoved aside as a token match. They were featured well, and hopefully most of them can. I'd be like the likes of Dan Maloney. Hopefully he can feature in future New Japan shows, or he might get an opportunity elsewhere off the back of that. So no, I couldn't have been happier with it. I hope you thought the same, Kieran, with that kind of that front.
Yeah, no, I loved it. Obviously, Rev Pro is my local promotion. I've not missed a York Hall show in about 6-7 years. You know, I'll go other shows, card dependent and everything. So seeing guys like, you know, like you say, Aussie Open, I've been watching them since they hit the UK, however many years ago now. And, you know, they had that big match at Royal Quest 1, and you was like, okay, they're off to Japan now. Surely they're on the plane. And then, you know, Davis gets injured, and then the pandemic happens, and now things have opened up a bit, and they're winning the strong tag titles and the United Empire. And this is such a big monumental moment for them, this match versus FTR. You know, they're also clearly hyped for it. Like every day on Twitter, the FTR lads were putting over Aussie Open, saying you are the future, but we're the present. You know, Aussie Open, a big platform for them, and they they knew how important it was to all of them, and they went in, man, over half an hour. Like, geez.
And like the match itself, like I'd say for about up till that match, the whole first night of the show, it was almost like a respectful, enjoyable show up to that point. But as soon as those two teams came out of for the main event, the whole atmosphere of the place changed. Everybody suddenly went from seating to standing for nearly the whole half an hour. It felt the closest thing to like you find like a football match, I thought. Just that kind of dueling chants. It was very like almost tribalistic, and like myself included, I was nearly in tears. I was in tears at the end, like, but that's neither here nor there. But it was brilliant. I couldn't have enjoyed it more. And even like on the front of like I've never seen a lot of these guys in person. I know, Kieran, you're lucky enough to have seen, be it like Okada, Naito, Tanahashi, Sanada, Despi. I've never seen them in person. I couldn't have been more impressed with how much effort they put into both nights, how engaging they were, and how nice they were across like both the meet and greets, talking to fans at ringside and things like that. Like I know you had your stuffed toy that Takahashi loved, Hiromu. so that was funny as well. Like I that was kind of a treat for me, just seeing these kind of people that I would have only seen on Extremes or like various different promotions. It wouldn't have been as heavily featured. Kind of my own wrestling viewings. That was felt like a real treat, and he felt the likes of when Okada came out, they felt like major stars, and like really felt like big attractions. Even kind of the presence Tanahashi and Okada had, just from their entrance, the way they moved in the ring, the way they interacted with the crowd, it was absolutely brilliant. Just add something to touch on before the show on night one. Actually, Andrew, they had a lovely remembrance for Antonio Inoki, who died the night previous. And obviously with Antonio Inoki and his kind of previous fallings out with New Japan, it was lovely to see they kind of went to that effort, had everybody surrounding the ring, played his music, did it a moment or a minute of applause, I think it was beforehand. Then he went at a 10-bell salute, and they played his famous music, Inoki Bumaye, and the whole crowd was clapping along for a good several minutes after that. It was really a nice feel good moment, obviously for a sad situation, but I think everybody kind of felt good and ready to go after that. They had Okada and Tanahashi as the two kind of pillars of New Japan in the ring, while everybody else surrounded the ring. It was kind of a nice touch as well. So, and I saw that Noah did a similar tribute at the same time. So it was brilliant. Just at a high level, those are kind of my immediate kind of takeaways from the shows. And couldn't have enjoyed it more, as I said.
Yeah, no, the obviously you kind of assumed something was going to happen at the top of the show for Antonio Inoki, given the time. And it did, and it was like really well done. The 10-bell salute, everyone was dead quiet, and then everyone was so joyful for the Inoki Bombay theme song and everything like that. You could see, you know, Tanahashi's always had his disagreements, shall we say, about Antonio Inoki and Antonio Inoki's philosophies, but Okada's obviously been very outspoken about wanting Inoki to appear in the ring this year in New Japan in some capacity. Of course, he done a video message for the 50th anniversary, but Okada, looking from pictures and videos, because me and Mark were sat behind, we couldn't see their face. Okada looked very much like he was holding back tears, if not crying. So obviously it was a special moment to him, and I'm sure they were all over the moon with the reaction they received from the UK audience, because you've got someone like Naito, who even said in his blog that he was surprised that, you know, so many people knew Inoki, that we
Uber
cared.
driver,
that he had an Uber driver mention to him that Inoki had died. Like, you know, so it probably I don't think they appreciate just how beloved perhaps they are in other parts of the world, the New Japan wrestlers, and how far back that extends. So for them to have that moment was probably quite nice for them as well as a roster. And then then they kicked it off with Gabriel Kidd versus Dan Maloney, which I think was the best, most perfect opening match you could want for a card like this. They just battered each other, chops sounding like gunshots. It was less than 10 minutes. I don't think there was a single rest hold. They just ran in, two balls, smacked the shit out of each other, and got the fuck out. Like,
it was brilliant. Yeah,
perfect.
absolutely. I loved it. I'd seen Dan Maloney the week before at OTT and at TNT recently as well. And every match he's involved in, like, he just batters the piss out of everybody, and he goes balls to the wall. There's no regard for his own health. And it was good to see Gabriel Kidd, who I know has like stepped away from
Mhm.
wrestling for the last while because he's had some personal issues. But it was brilliant. He was fantastic as well. He looked in incredible shape. So at the time off, he's obviously been keeping himself in good nick and training as well in the meantime. Then following that match, we then had Michael Oku and Ricky Knight Jr., the British Cruiserweight and Heavyweight Champion. They faced Gideon Gray and the Great O'Khan. That I really enjoyed. That was about a 12-minute match or so, and there was I hadn't seen Lord Gideon Gray in person before, and like it was, I didn't appreciate how good he is, like in terms of his interaction as almost like the perfect pantomime villain, and how upper class British he is. It's the best way. It's just the best way I can kind of describe it as an Irish person. But it was like the bowler hat, his jacket, his walking stick, everything was, and how elongated he is in terms of just like talking about Great O'Con's undefeated record in the UK from when he was previously with Rev Pro. Like he had the entire crowd like in the palm of his hand from start to finish. His comedy interactions during the matches. I actually had never seen him wrestle. I'd obviously just seen him kind of being part outside the ring as a comedy character, but he was brilliant at everything he did. And it was good. And then obviously Ricky Knight Jr., the British heavyweight champion, naturally pinned Gideon Gray as not a full-time wrestler. So, but yeah, I love that as well. And again, those first two matches really went out of the way to highlight standouts and regulars with Rev Pro and got people on the British scene, which was really nice touch from the New Japan crew. Yeah, I think at one point, I think O'Khan took a bad head collision with Michael Oku at one point, but they kind of worked through that and kind of got towards the finish off the back of that. But again, it could have been better. Really, really enjoyable. Really good tone-setting matches to open the show.
Yeah, I love Gideon Gray. Like pantomime villain is very accurate. He's just like, a chitty bang bang villain, just a children's villain in a TV show. But he's like, when he got announced as going to Japan, that he was going to be wrestling in Korakuen Hall in a New Japan ring, I was like, this is simultaneously the most ridiculous and best thing. Like, if you've been going to Rev Pro shows over the years, you would have seen him in a multitude of different things, and he's just so good at what he does. Like, he's superb,
incredible.
I really love his commentary. Because he does commentary for the Rev Pro UK shows on Rev Pro On Demand now, and I love his commentary. The way he winds Andy Quilden up is just just so great to hear.
Just watching his mannerisms and how well he's able to interact with people, like he's naturally, like I don't know how he hasn't been looked at as like even for like NXT UK. He may have been previously, he may have been approached for that, or like, maybe in the future approached for NXT Europe or something. But he looks like a natural television villain that could kind of transcend audiences, be it over stateside, Japan, UK. Like I'm not sure what kind of age profile he is either, so that may be other reasoning around that. But he was incredibly impressive across both days. The small things where he's selling on the outside of the ring, how much he interacted with the crowd, and like somebody throw a bit of abuse at him, and so he'd come back with a witty retort, or like he'd be selling and talking about how fucked he was, and like the Great O'Khan would be outside like fanning him with a t-shirt at one point, and it was brilliant. I was pretty blown away by him, and just how much quality he has and everything he does as a performer. So off the back of that, then we went into the women's match for the evening. It was Alex Windsor and Ava White. They beat Jazzy Gabera and Kanji in 6 minutes. So it was a bit of a strange match. This, obviously, like the likes of Ava White, this weekend was her big opportunity moving into the Stardom, the IWGP Women's Title Tournament. I think we'd all be familiar with her from very around the British wrestling scene. I can see that she has an incredible presence. She's worked across Ireland, the UK, and she's working very regularly against a lot of the top women in the UK. But I don't know. I thought there was something a bit off in this match. There was a slight disconnect. I thought Alex Windsor and Jazzy and Kanji were all brilliant. I thought Ava, I don't know, she maybe tried a bit slightly too hard. I think they went to quite a rushed finish. It seemed like it kind of came out of nowhere. It was kind of 5 minutes in, suddenly somebody hit a fisherman suplex, and then it was 1, 2, 3, and the whole crowd were like, okay, we thought it just started. I think there was murmurings at ringside that somebody had gotten hurt during the match as well, so maybe that explained it. But what were your thoughts on that match, Kieran?
It was a pretty nothing match in the grand scheme of things, wasn't it? Like it deserve a spot, get him on the card, especially for previewing the second night and everything. And Ava White does have a tremendous look. It's kind of like Charlotte vibes in that she's got she's a tall lady, big, not in weight, just naturally big bodied and everything. Like she really stands out in a women's division, especially in the UK scene. We don't have anyone like her for sure. Like I see her Pro Wrestling Eve all the time. She's got such a distinct presence. But the match wasn't anything anyone's going to be remembering or talking about from all the matches that happened this weekend.
Exactly. And it was, it did set up somewhat the kind of the Jazzy Gabera Ava White match of the following day, but there was no tease of it after the match or anything. There was a bit of a tease before the match, kind of slight confrontation, a bit of back and forth, but there was nothing that would like leave you looking for wanting more between the two of them for the following day as a build up almost. Like whereas every other match, be it Jay White and Tamatonga or like Naito and Zack Saber Jr., everybody had a bit of back and forth that they were setting up for the following day, but because it seemed to go to such a rush finish. Like everybody's kind of left and went to the back, and that was it. It was, and we were all a bit slightly bemused, probably the best way to put it, at ringside, seeing as to what happened. But following that, we then had Hiromu Takahashi, Sanada, and Naito. Versus Zack Saber Jr., Dookie, and El Desperado. Now, I know you particularly enjoyed this in your interaction with Hiromu. But it was a really good match. And I think obviously the main focus of this match was to build towards Zack Saber Jr. and Naito the following night. And obviously with Zack Saber Jr. being, this is his first appearance, if I'm right, in the UK in about 5 or 6 years.
No, Valentine's Day 2020. I only know that because I was there and I went to a wrestling show on Valentine's Day. So, you know. No, their fiance doesn't let me forget that one.
Yeah.
Was that his match against Will Ospreay?
Yeah, exactly. Where Will finally won the British title. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. It was really, really enjoyable. So like, it was a good match. Like all the crowd liked and enjoyed, but they can kind of tell it was building towards something bigger the following day. Like obviously Zack Saber Jr. was getting kind of chance to rout, and it was a lot of comedy needling is probably the best way to describe it. Like it was Naito and Zack Saber Jr. were like, they were teasing tension, but almost in like trying to wind each other up back and forth way. Which was very enjoyable. It wasn't a typical like, I'm gonna shove you, you're gonna shove me back type stuff. It was just Zack being like a typical, like, I probably can't say this in a British-based podcast, but a typical kind of London, just a mouthy like yob is probably the best way to describe it. And it was written Naito just like tranquilo. It was, I really enjoyed that. And again, like I'd never seen like Sanada or these people in person. You kind of appreciate when you get to see them up close, and we're lucky enough to be ringside, like how incredibly technically excellent everybody was, particularly Sanada and Takahashi. I was really impressed with Sanada across the whole weekend, even like how he interacted with people at the meet and greets and things like that, and how he performed across both nights when he was working with European-based wrestlers. But the quality, I really enjoyed in that match. And obviously there's kind of funny spots with Desperado and whatnot, but it was... like the focus again was on building towards Naito's Saber for the following night, with Naito then picking up the win. We hit Destino and Dookie for the finish. But it was a good match to kind of set up things for the next day.
Yeah, no, I love this. This was one of the ones I was most looking forward to. Like, it's a tag match that would happen 100 times on a tour in Japan, like building up to the match at the end of the tour. But because it was in the UK, I was hoping they'd put in that little bit extra. You know, they've got the live crowd cheering that they're not getting in Japan at the moment. And I really think they did step it up. Like, El Desperado is easily one of my favorite wrestlers, perhaps my favorite current active wrestler, because Katsuyori Shibata is kind of, is he not? So I was excited to see him. Doki, I absolutely fucking love. It was my first time seeing him because since he joined New Japan, the pandemic started and he hasn't been over. And then, like, I do love Naito, and there's not many wrestlers that have better chemistry than Naito and Zack.
Yeah.
And it's not for, like you said, it's not the, I'm tougher than you, I'm going to get in your face. It's just the little, like, they just, needle each other. They just wind each other up because Zack's so easy to ride up and Naito's the complete opposite, you know.
Yeah.
Naito taking his time walking to the ring, just pretending he's walking, but really he's standing on the spot and not moving. And, you know, Zack's tapping the watch and Zack's lifting up the ring rope, like, you know, come on. And like Hiromu, Sanada, like putting Zack in the paradise, trying to put Zack in the paradise lock is always a funny moment and everything. And then Desperado right in front of me and Mark gets Sanada on the floor outside of the ring and smashing a chair over his leg. And Sanada stay down. I'm like, Sanada, you're all right. And Sanada's like, nope, not
again. No, I remember that.
But yeah, no, it was exactly what I wanted. It was just a fun 6-man tag, nothing too serious, lots of comedy, but lots of really good wrestling as well, it was just everything I wanted it to be.
Yeah, just on that, on Zack Saber Jr. and Naito, I think the best way to describe it was kind of my instant reaction was they didn't appear to be acting. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you can kind of, a lot of wrestling can be forced at every level, but it seemed very incredibly natural. This is how they would act in a certain situation. If I was trying to get in a fight with you, I would wind you up this way. And it just seemed, I think that kind of organic kind of chemistry and organic, natural interactions kind of just makes for it kind of set up the following day better than would have been if they'd kind of done some sort of cheap angle, I suppose. But that's as they wouldn't fight, that would have had in other companies, I suppose. But yeah, it was very enjoyable. And again, the show was kind of building at this point. Every match, aside from the women's match, was kind of a strange finish. Every match was kind of building towards semi-main, main, and whatnot. Following that, and there was more and more kind of crowd interaction and more crowd excitement throughout the show as well. So following that, we had Okada and Tomohiro Ishii. They faced Tito, and it was supposed to be Jonah, but he faced some, I think it was flight or visa issues, so he couldn't travel over to the UK. So he was replaced quite late on by Zack Knight, and people from the UK independent scene would be familiar with him. Yeah, so Okada came out and he got an incredible reaction. He was even wearing his newly designed robe. I think he only got designed in the last number of years, but it's got all of his title victories kind of inscribed on it. Which I thought was a nice touch to show that he was taking the show seriously. He wasn't just coming out in a t-shirt or whatnot. He was giving it the full Rainmaker presentation is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think that's the good thing about Okada is he doesn't ever not do that. Like, he is a star. It doesn't matter whether he's wrestling in front of, 2,000 people in Crystal Palace, or he's wrestling in front of 50,000 people in the Tokyo Dome. He gives you the full Okada experience.
Yeah, and I think I was saying to you, like, obviously you were far more in tune with Tito than I'd have been previously. Oh my god, he was incredible. Like, he was like, as you very aptly put during the match, he is another Dr. Death Steve Williams, and it couldn't have been more appropriate for that metaphor as such. But he was incredible from start to finish. His demeanor, his interactions, everything he did was hard-hitting, believable, and he's a halfway between like a serious, really hard-hitting character, but he's also got that kind of swagger and comedy about him as well. Like, I'm surprised he's never been, that I'm aware of, that he's never been picked up for being American, some sort of television product. So I think maybe he has, but like, what he brings as a presentation, I think, can be easily transferable across a number of different promotions.
Yeah, no, I think he started to get his kind of his foot in New Japan strong. He started to pick up pace, and then he got teamed with Jonah, and then the Mighty O'Neil, Shane Hasten, Mikey Nichols. He does the G1 tour where he's coupled up with Jonah, and they win, I think, pretty much all their tag matches as well for the most part. And all these new guys that are coming over from Strong, plus Gideon as well, not from Strong, but have made their ground in Japan. They've totally endeared themselves to the Japanese audience really quickly. As well. The Japanese audience really spoken to them. But yeah, no, I think Dr. Death Steve Williams, like you said, he's just a ringer for him. He's got the look, the long, curly hair as well, the physique and everything. I think that there's so much potential for him within New Japan, and New Japan are clearly high on him. Like, they gave him a singles match versus Okada. They don't give those away like willy-nilly.
Yeah, I think his whole presentation is kind of a big physical monster heel. How much he kind of goes back and forth with the crowd in terms of shouting and like, "Shut up, you!" Even that type of thing that would go over really, really well with the Japanese audience, who kind of might appreciate that traditional heel face dynamic. Just from my own kind of viewings and whatnot, I kind of get that impression anyway. So I think he could, hopefully he will, kind of push on and become more of a monster heel. I think he has that potential, particularly in Japan, as kind of organic, homegrown monster heel over there. I really enjoyed through this match that, like, the whole way through, they were again kind of building towards the second show the next day between himself and a one-on-one match with Okada. Zack Knight as well. I thought he did really well for somebody kind of probably to step in like 1 or 2 days notice. Like, I know Zack Knight on Twitter this past week, he was touching on like a lot of kind of physical and mental health problems he had himself, and how delighted he was that he got this opportunity, be it late notice or last minute or whatnot, but he's still able to be in a position in his life where he was able to turn up for a show like this, get placed in a high level match, be it with Tomohiro Ishii and Okada, and still deliver and perform, and not just be a side fixture of the match. He was very much prominent throughout. Like, Ishii picked up the win over Zack Knight towards the end with a brain buster, but I think everybody within that match, and it was very giving of Ishii and Okada, gave those guys an opportunity to kind of perform and showcase themselves in front of a British audience. But I thought it was a really nice touch. Yeah,
like, that must have been such a huge deal for Zack Knight, like, to step into the ring with Kazuchika Okada. How many people can say they've done that, especially on that late notice as well? And he got a few moments in where he got to showcase himself as well. Like, admittedly, when they announced that he was replacing Jonah, I was like, really? Like, Jonah's, it's very complete, like, two very different styles of wrestlers and everything. But all things considered, I was quite impressed with Zack Knight.
I thought everything he did in turn, like everything was tidy. It was physical. He was very intense. I don't think he could have done much more with what he was given as the opportunity he had. So, like, I'd say he'll definitely get a lot of opportunities at the back of that. And then at the end of the match, then Yoda Tsuji, you guys be familiar with from Rev Pro, then came into the match to set tease and set up his match with Tomohiro Ishii the following day, he was the day 2 replacement for Jonah, if I'm not wrong? Yeah. So he came in he came in his strange half kimono, half off kimono look, and he had like 2 hairpins in the. I didn't quite get this. I thought it was a bit strange. He came into the ring, dropped both hairpins on the ground, picked up one. Obviously, it's like a tease, like you have one now, we must fight type of thing. Bit strange, but I was a bit bemused by that. But again, it was targeted for fans who'd be a lot more familiar, obviously, with the Rev Pro base than what I would have been. And would have been more familiar with his interactions and his work and whatnot. But again, I quite like that every match or most matches seem to be building towards something bigger the following day. It was something, because it wasn't live televised in New Japan World. These are almost like, it made the shows feel more intimate and special for the UK audience, I thought. And those kind of end of match teases kind of really added to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually what New Japan do long term. You know, they do it over the month of the tour, but obviously it's back-to-back nights. So yeah, building for the next night. In this case, it was obviously Okada versus Tito. They had a bit of a confrontation over the ring ropes, and then Yota Tsuji making a surprise appearance, which was a great replacement for Jonah. You know, getting an actual another New Japan talent as well. Consider all things considered, with how little time they would have had to get a replacement, I think we was all over the moon that it was Tsuji.
Yeah. Yeah, no, again, like that's that Rev Pro interaction. That they touched on it during the Gideon Gray and Greater Khan match earlier in the night. I think you'd said that there was a manager that came out from the Rev Pro Legion stable, came out with them. I wasn't aware of his name at the time, but they did touch on the Greater Khan was part of the Legion as well, and the fact that they touched on later on that Suji is part of the Legion. So that nice little interaction with the home base and the guys who've been putting on the show for New Japan. Again, a nice touch from New Japan, I thought. But then following that, we then had Tanahashi, Tamatonga, and Hikuleo and Jado then faced the Bullet Club of Jay White, Carl Anderson, and Doc Gallows and Gato. That was in 12 minutes. This was almost a comedy match, I think. It was really good fun for everybody in attendance, but it was the entrances on both sides seemed to have almost more time than the match did. The whole Bullet Club presentation, that and like Tanahashi, everything that's all very special, particularly for like a foreign audience such as ourselves who wouldn't have seen these people so regularly. And the match was a lot more centered around, like, I suppose, Jay White like interacting and teasing things, just being like kind of a squirrely heel. And then Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows interacting with the crowd as well. What do you think of the match? I enjoyed it for what it was, but I didn't think as a wrestling match it was great as such.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. If you're there live, it was great fun. But if you was watching on New Japan World, when that inevitably comes out, it's kind of a nothing match. Yeah. But it was one that I enjoyed being there because of all the little interactions. I think Jay White always makes any tag match worth watching because he's just so comical on the ring ropes. He's always shouting out stuff. Like Luke Gallows is trying to do test the strength, barging into each other with Hikuleo. And Jay White is screaming at the top of his lungs in his Kiwi accent, like, come on, big guy, you're the big guy. And anything like to rile up Gallows. And, there was some, let's go Switchblade, fuck King Switch chance, maybe. Fuck King Switch, I think it was, or fuck Jay White. And he reacted to that because he's not used to that. He's popular. He's not going to get those type of chants in Japan because they're just too kind. And in the States, Bullet Club, we all love Bullet Club. I love Bullet Club. Jay White's one of my favorite wrestlers. But I'm simultaneously chanting "Let's go Jay White" and "Fuck Jay White" because both sides of the coin. It's just fun, and the way he's reacting is great because, he's just so good at what he does. And like Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows having these little interactions with the crowd, like people started chanting for Luke Gallows when he wasn't even in the match, and Carl Anderson's like giving him a hug and stuff like that. Like it was a nothing wrestling match, but there was lots of fun to be had for the live crowd.
Again, it was kind of like a pantomime match. Like there was a lot of chants targeted Gallows around his biscuits and gravy Festus character. Like that was kind of, again, he wouldn't have that. He probably wouldn't have that in the States. Like that's the kind of probably a bit more witty chants, a bit more fun chants you probably have over this side of the world. And you could tell they enjoyed it. They enjoyed that interaction. They enjoyed being that kind of pantomime villain character, and they kind of leaned into that rather than focusing on trying to have a technically great wrestling match. And I think the fact that they gave off the impression, like Carl Anderson and Dak Owens, they don't give a shit. Like, they're here to have fun.
They don't.
They don't give a fuck. Like,
They never give a shit.
That's exactly. And like, I know Carl Anderson's touched, like, I won't wrestle properly unless it's like 5,000 people or something. Well, that's fine. There's 2,000 there, but we still had fun. So you get like, sorry, that match. I had fun. It was fun, and again, but on New Japan World, it probably won't come across great. But Tanahashi got the pin on Gato after hitting a high fly low. And then after the match, the tease more between Tamatonga and Jay White. I know they've got a match coming up, I think, for the World Heavyweight title in the 10th.
Monday.
Monday, yeah, in Sumo Hall, I think. Yeah. So that's obviously what they're building towards. And again, there was kind of teases for the following night in that as well. They essentially did the same match the following night. Just took away Gato and Jado, which was we were sitting at the ringside thinking, like, that's all right, it's a bit lazy. But anyway, it was funny, yeah, at the same time. It was enjoyable, and like, it kind of, again, the show was building, and the crowd seemed to be getting hotter as it went along. And then following that, we had a singles match between Will Ospreay and Shota Umino, like, obviously two Rev Pro stalwarts over the past number of years, which is really cool. Will Ospreay, even though he was at the Rev Pro 10th anniversary show, his entrance, I thought, like, he kind of came, well, first of all, came across like a rock star, returning, conquering hero almost. I was brilliant, like, the whole way through the match, that Ospreay, the whole way through the match. It was really good. The crowd interaction, crowd were really hot for it. It was about a 15-minute match. I wouldn't say it'd be one of Will Ospreay's best matches this year, but it was good. I'd say like a 3.5 star, maybe, on the Meltzer scale, or whatever they want to call it. And it was good. I think the match was kind of picking up, and then it had somewhat of an abrupt finish, I thought. Like, it made sense to finish. It was really, I liked it in the sense of, you hit a Liger bomb with Red Shoes, the referee, so you kind of played into that. So after the Liger bomb, you kind of hit a high angle Liger bomb, so you kind of landed quite high in the back, and then rolled him over straight away and hit a lot of those quite vicious elbows to the back of the head that he did with Mad Kurt recently. And then Shota Red Shoes Uno rather, called off the match, and they kind of left it at that. And then Shota Umino was selling like a concussion or a knock for ages after kind of stumbling around the ring, getting young boys to help him out. It was good, yeah. Like, it was a really good wrestling match. It kind of changed the tone. It kind of brought you back into a wrestling show as well, away from the pantomime. It was good in terms of setting the tone for what was to come after that. I think you said to me beforehand, I think that was originally slotted to be the main event.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, they announced the cards on Twitter and everything. You went onto the website and it had FTR Aussie Open as the main event. And then, like, you know, I've sent it to friends on chatting on Discord and stuff, and I've clicked it like a couple of hours later, and they've rearranged it. And then it was Ospreay was very clearly the main event. And even in the long detailed description where they do the full match preview, it had, like, you know, FTR will face Aussie Open in the semi-main event or the co-main event. And so when when Ospreay and Shota Umino was revealed as not being the main event, I was like, fine. Like, FTR and Aussie Open should have always been headlining this. That should have never been in question. Like, I appreciate Ospreay is the returning hero. The English crowd are going to go wild for him. He's our boy. And they put him in a big singles match as well, rather than just slotting him into a random match. They've given him Shota Umino, but fucking FTR and Aussie Open should have always been headlining.
Yeah, and I think, thank God they did, because, like, if that had been the finish and that was kind of the end of a show, I think everybody had gone home disappointed. They probably would have given them more time to kind of build more and done more. But for a 15-minute match, it was good. Like, and again, it did set you up for what was to come. That's the best way to describe it, Andrew.
Yeah, I agree. It was a wrestling match, gone with a pantomime and stuff like that. I will say there was lots of chants for Red Shoes himself, because the British audience, you know, how often do we get to see Red Shoes? And he, in the beginning, Red Shoes was quite fun with it. Like, he pretended like he was going to start getting into a fight with Ospreay, like putting the fists up and stuff. And then as the match went on, Red Shoes was like, "Okay, guys, calm down. Like, let's watch the wrestling, guys." Like, he didn't want the attention anymore. He wanted it on the wrestlers, you know.
What I quite enjoy the Red Shoes, like, obviously, like, he came out as like a special attraction for the semi-main and main on both days. But the small things, like, he's obviously used to working a higher quality of actual physical ring. And I think it was quite noticeable every day he come out. Like, it's been touched on a few different places online since then. Every match he was involved in, he would find something wrong with the ring. Be it like you found like kind of loose boards, or you thought the ropes weren't tight. So the poor guy sitting in front of us, like directly in front of we were the first night, they were like being run ragged, having to find wrenches to tighten up the ropes throughout in the middle of matches. Like, Red Shows would forget about what's going on in the ring, turn to the ring crew, like, start shaking, shake tighter. But yeah, like I thought that was pretty cool, just in terms of it kind of shows the standing he has, that he can kind of completely go off script and not worry about what's in front of him, but he's going to prioritize the safety and quality of what the wrestlers can and can't do. So I didn't think that was great. Like, obviously, I got a bit of coverage online. I don't know if you saw that, the kind of quality of the ring, but yeah, Red Shoes did enjoy kind of the crowd interactions as well, and I think like it's obviously a special moment for him getting to, I don't know if he's done it before, but getting to referee his son, back at almost like home base for Shota Umino as well. So that was really cool. And then off the back of that, then we were into the main event, and like the atmosphere in the building just immediately changed once Red Shoes and Will and Shota Umino just left. Like everybody suddenly went from like a relaxed New Japan, like enjoyable wrestling show to suddenly like, shit, okay, here we go, right, okay. And like I was a complete fanboy with wearing an FTR t-shirt, had a second t-shirt in front of the barricade just in case he looked at me to give him a high five type thing. It was brilliant. Like I'm obviously like, I probably like, ruined Kieran's eardrum shouting so much, but it was fucking it was brilliant. I couldn't have enjoyed it more. Like it was tense. It was like a cup final is the best way to describe it. You had very clearly two different cohorts of fans. Like Kieran, you were chatting for Aussie Open, I was chatting for FTR, and it was everywhere. Like people behind me were Aussie Open, guys to my right were FTR, and the array of different types of chants throughout, even before the match, before they'd even touch, was amazing. Both entrances also kind of gave for great crowd interaction with the Aussie Open entrance, like Aussie, 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 oi, 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 and like I think all the crowd were chanting along for that, and then the FTR kind of 80s, 70s piano type music, like everybody was chanting along for that, and Dax and Cash are enjoying it more and more. So they spent about 20 minutes in the crowd, just running around, getting themselves wound up beforehand. But it was brilliant. Like I saw like Will Ospreay called it the best tag match he'd ever seen. In my like for what I like and what I enjoy in terms of emotional kind of physical wrestling, that would possibly be the best match I've ever seen. And I was fortunate enough to be in Dallas for Supercard of Honor this year. And I didn't think it was physically possible for them to top the FTR Briscoes match, but I thought this was a level above, just possibly in large part, I think, due to the crowd and how the fact that there was so much anticipation and build up for it, and that they were able to deliver, and the crowd kind of helped galvanize the guys in terms of put more into it. Like they beat the piss out of each other. Like that's not exaggeration. Like 2 minutes into the match, Dax's chest was bleeding like buckets just from the chops from Davis. Like they had to send 2 or 3 young boys to the back to try find towels and tape to kind of stem the blood flow. But it was, I was still kind of in shock the following day, like or for a day or two after, just kind of reflecting on it. Like I know, like Dax came out himself and said it may have been the best match of his career, and he's hoping that, like, be it on the coverage from New Japan or whatnot, like that it has that full atmosphere from the crowd involved with it, so it's not diluted and the opinions aren't lessened of it. But it was yeah, it was amazing because we were so close ringside. You're almost watching everybody involved in the match, all 4 participants at all times, to try to see, oh, please break it up, please be okay, get off your arse, come on, let's go, you need to break that pin up. It kind of took you out of me anyway. It took me out of the moment of being a wrestling fan at a wrestling show to being like as you would be as a kid almost, and kind of you're really hoping for somebody to win, like an actual competitive real life competition. Which was amazing. Like as a 30-year-old man, I couldn't have thought it was better. And the ending, like the amount of close falls on both ends that you're absolutely convinced was the ending. Like I say that all 4 of them must have been an absolute bits for the whole week. Like I know, like they're all traveling around and performing on shows since then. But yeah, like I can't quite put into words, and obviously that's not great for appearing on a podcast. We need to articulate your thoughts, but sorry, I couldn't quite put into words how good it was unless you were there to experience it live. That's probably my biggest takeaway from Kieran.
I think one of the coolest things as well going into this is that there was not a clear favorite. It could have easily gone either way because, you know, FTR have 3 different title belts. Aussie Open have the strong titles. You know, there's no reason Aussie Open couldn't have the IWGP titles as well. There's no reason for FTR to necessarily drop the titles at the first defense when New Japan have got these amazing champions, like probably the best tag team easily best tag team of the year this year. So it did add that such a level of excitement because you really bit on all these near falls, and they were great near falls, and you were like, okay, this is it. And you got the full crowd, you know, the 1-2, and then the close kick out, and everyone's losing their minds. You know, blood all over the place from Dax's chest right at the beginning. I always say Mark Davis when people. Well, if I go to a wrestling show and someone's not seen Aussie Open before, not sure Mike Davis, I always say I think he's the only man whose chops could rival Walters or Gunter, whatever he's fucking going by these days. I think he's the only man that could rival him in chops. And yeah, you know, like 1 or 2 chops in, and he's split Dax's chest open just by chops. Like, that's fucking gnarly.
And it wasn't like a small cut; it was gushing.
Oh,
like
it was awful.
I was on like that chest blood, like. Was more of a gusher than any other like head wounds. I think they all were bleeding at one point, but like it was covering everybody who interacted with Dax then following that.
Yeah, no, like Mark Davis his arm was basically just fucking red at one point, or his shoulder, and it was just from Dax's fucking chest, let alone Dax's head later in the match and Mark Davis's own head later in the match, where he's fucking going full on Ric Flair, basically. Being stuck in the sharpshooter. I'm sure that'll be a great visual. Him stuck in the sharpshooter, leaning for the ropes with the blood, like literally just fucking. You can see more red than you can see his own skin. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this does come across, because it's so different to being there in person. Like, you know, you're excited for the atmosphere and then watching it back live as well, especially because it's going to be on demand. It's not going to be live. That does take away a lot of the specialness of it, you know. But hopefully people can judge it in that vacuum, because there's easily, you know, another match of the year contender right here.
Like I thought you actually touched on that spot with the sharpshooters. It was like, Andrew, it was brilliant. Like both FTR guys had both the Aussie Open guys and sharpshooters, and like Mark Davis was teasing, tapping, and Kyle Fletcher's like, don't do it, and grabbing his hand and kind of riled him up. I thought at that point, I was like, shit, okay, Aussie Open are going to win this. They're going to get out of this somehow and reverse it, and it'll end up being their finish. But like the fact that it had so many of those moments where you're like, it convinces you that somebody's going to win it one way or the other. It was absolutely magical. Like I obviously that's my kind of taste in wrestling, but I also thought it was nice that it was Mark Davis who took the pin. Like Kyle Fletcher quite often is the one who takes the pinfall for any kind of match involving Aussie Open, and he's the kind of fall guy as such because he's smaller. But the fact that they hit a big rig on Mark Davis and they made him run the ropes and go leapfrog and dump up and under after 30 odd minutes of wrestling before hitting the big rig. I thought it was just something different. It was something you didn't expect would kind of add it to the finish. And I think there was also touch on from about minute 15 to about minute 30, the crowd didn't sit down. Like I can't remember what the spot was, but it was something. There was and this is awesome standing ovation from minute 15, and then nobody resumed their seats. There was no lull. Like from minute 15 onwards, you thought every movement could have been towards the finish, and it was that sustained anticipation and excitement for 15 minutes straight, building towards a conclusion. I just thought it was kind of blew my mind. I think after Kieran left, I was crying. But anyway, that's I'm
waiting until I left.
Yeah. Men don't cry. But it was fantastic. And then, I'm sorry, obviously a bit lost for words in it still. But then after the match, FTR then cut a promo, and I know people have kind of got wind of this since that, like, Dax Harwood shot on Tony Khan, used this on TV, and all this. But it was very much in the tone of in jest. Like kind of having a laugh with the crowd, taking away from the seriousness, I thought anyway. And then he really went out of the way to put over Aussie Open as the future tag team wrestling. And then he also had a nice touch, like, hell, never mind my credibility or my future spot. I think you are. I think his wording was, I think you are the best tag team in the world. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I have no idea. I just remember him shooting on Tony, like what he said about Tony Khan. To be
honest, I'm pretty sure he did. And then Grado Khan and Will Ospreay then came down to the ring. And they were teasing a handshake between the two teams. And it was funny, Will was right in front of us. And Will was telling Grado Khan and the Aussie Open what to do, because they're obviously built in Will's mind. He's like, no, never mind shaking hands. We're building towards tomorrow. So I think he was ordering Grado Khan to go into the ring and stand in between them, stop that handshake so we can tease the 5-on-5 match the following day. Which, like, I mean, obviously they're going to shake hands behind stage, but I thought that was really cool that they kind of, even in the moment, such an emotional moment, they're still thinking of the bigger picture. We're constantly building, we're constantly staying in character, we're constantly looking towards the future as well. So like, I mean, there's so many superlatives I've been said about this match. Like, I mean, I've probably tweeted enough about it myself anyway. So, I was chatting to Dax afterwards and gave him a bottle of tequila and stuff like that, because I thought it was amazing. But that was night one. I think everybody leaving that, we're 45 minutes in now, but everybody leaving that arena that day. Was kind of blown away, speechless, breathless. I think the best way to describe it. Like I didn't know, regardless of what happened on day 2, that nothing could top that, and what you could just go to day 2 without expectations, and just enjoy it. That was kind of my takeaway from day 1, anyway.
Yeah, I always felt night 1 had the stronger card. I saw others say night 2 had a stronger card. I give arguments either way. I just always felt this FTR as the open match was a marquee match. Like they sold off night 1 off the back of this one match. Like when Aussie Open were announced for the card and FTR were announced for the shows, like everyone instantly was like, give us Aussie Open versus FTR. That's all anyone wanted from this weekend when those cards were announced. It's like, cool, Okada's coming over, cool, Tanahashi's coming over, oh, cool, Naito's coming over, give me FTR, give me them in the ring with Aussie Open. And it done everything it needed to. It delivered absolutely.
Right, so a couple of questions quickly. Do you think Aussie Open and FTR will be part of New Japan's World Tag League this year?
Well, apparently FTR are booked for a show when the World Tag League tour's on. So that potentially answers that question, unfortunately.
Ooh.
Aussie Open have to be. It's been far too long. They should be in there. They should be winning it and maybe do the rematch in the Tokyo Dome.
My thoughts on that in terms of the actual result in the match, I was delighted FTR won, but if it wasn't going to be Aussie Open to beat them, who should?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought, like, even like a few months ago, seeing Aussie Open at OTT shows, even back then, I was thinking, yeah, these guys are the ones to take the belts and kind of carry it forward. Like, I think they should. Like, I mean, arguably they should have been. FTR still have 2 sets of belts. Like, and they're building towards. I think it's another match with the Briscoes in Ring of Honor, and they can drop the AAA tag titles anytime they want because they don't defend them really, and they can try and move back in towards the AEW tag title division after that. But if they weren't going to drop them in London to Aussie Open, where do they? Because they haven't been to Japan before. They're not really. They've done Dax has done a couple of one-on-one matches in New Japan Strong. So I don't really know where they go next. I mean, is there any kind of obvious tag teams you would think here on that could possibly be the ones to take that off them?
No, not at all. But I just think it would be a big shame for FTR to have these titles and not go to Japan. You know, because they're not. There's nothing difficult to get about them. Once they step in the ring and you watch a match, you know, they're very old school. Obviously, you know, everything's been said about FTR all the time. So in theory, they should be quite popular with the Japanese audience.
Yes.
Whether them versus Aussie Open would be the best idea because it would potentially be 2 new tag teams to the Japanese live crowd, at least. You know, apparently the Japanese crowd have really, like the Japanese audience really diligently watch New Japan Strong, to be fair. But yeah, there's no obvious tag teams. Like you've got Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb, maybe. And obviously they've got the history. They didn't really lose the titles at Forbidden Door. Of course, Rocky Romero took the pin, didn't he? And Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb are constantly talking about FTR in their backstage comments. But other than that, there's no through tag teams. You know, you've got Dangerous Tekkers like Saber and Taichi. You can make a LIJ combination between Sanada and Naito or Sanada and Shingo or whatever. But there's no, outright tag teams at the moment in the New Japan Heavyweight Tag Team division.
I think when you talked about... Sorry, Andy, after you.
My final question was going to be where you think Kid and Umino are on their excursions right now.
Can I just say I fucking love Gabriel Kidd? Like, I know he had his issues and everything. He's like, I've hung out. We went to a show in Southampton when Alex Coughlin was over here because I'm quite friendly with Alex Coughlin. And Gabriel Kidd asked if we could give him a lift from Southampton to Heathrow, so we did. That was quite a long car journey, you know, so I got to know him quite well. And then at the meet and greet, I didn't buy a ticket for him. Obviously, went over and said hello straight away, up out of his seat to congratulate me and my now fiance because we got engaged a few weeks ago. He's a total. Thank you very much. He's a total sweetheart outside ring, but he's fucking incredible inside ring. I absolutely love him. Like that Dan Maloney match is one of my favorite from the weekend.
He looks like a built man as well. Like
exactly. I think he's set. He's done. He's ready to go. I think maybe. He's not a young lion anymore. He's got his own entrance music. He's got his own gear. He's got the hairstyle. It's just a matter of where they go from here. Because with New Japan Strong, it is quite shit in that you see these guys once a month if you're lucky, maybe. Yeah. You know, you get them on a tour in Japan and you're seeing them 5 days a week because the shows are all streamed live on New Japan World. You get to know these guys a lot quicker when they're in Japan than you do on New Japan Strong. And Shota Umino feels like he's been here forever, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's been long.
He came pre-pandemic. The poor fucker, you know. Hopefully he got to go home back to Japan during the pandemic because but I think he's now he's got to be getting ready to go back, right? Like I think, I joke with friends that he was spending all his time having Greg's sausage rolls, experience the British culture, because he was putting on a bit of a belly, but now he's done the old Tanahashi thing where he's put on lots of weight and now he's just ripped. He's got the six pack going. He looks incredible now. Get the guy back to Japan, man. He's suffered enough over here in the UK.
I met him on a Limerick show for OTT, like back in April, May. And like you said, like he was obviously thick, trained really well, but I thought it was really noticeable how shredded he was at the weekend, and like how much of he actually come across like a star, and how well he interacted with the audience around ringside. And you can see that like he's obviously like a home audience for him to an extent, but I think he's ready to kind of step out into do his own thing at any moment. Like even how well he did at Forbidden Door and how the match for AEW and how well the match was built around him and Chris Jericho in various different spots. I think there's no reason. Even like Suji, I thought he was incredible for a young lion on his excursion. I think he was absolutely amazing the following night. So we better move on to that, Andrew, I suppose, into the day two. So yeah, the day two results. Then we kind of kicked off the show with Desperado and Dookie. They faced Michael Oku and Robbie X. Robbie X had been prepared for one PW, as you probably touched on earlier the night before. That was brilliant. It was really good, as I said earlier, to have the European guys interact directly with, say, such top tier talent from New Japan. And like the result came after 9 minutes when Desperado pinned Robbie X. Robbie X, Michael Oku all had moments to shine, and Michael Oku was teasing his half crab a few different times at the crowd. The whole arena was joining in the chants, like, now we play and things like that. But I really enjoyed that. It really set the tone for day two. I think everybody was still, people who've obviously been there the day before, were still on a high from the night previous. So really enjoyable, great engagement with the crowd, and a perfect tone setter, I thought.
Yeah, exactly. I love as well. I'm, like I said, big El Desperado fan. He came out with the black and gold gear, which he usually only does for special occasions. And the fact that he just decided to bring that gear for the UK audience, like, I lost my shit when he came out in that gear, because it's usually just the black and white mask. If you're lucky, he might have the bit where his mouth is showing and he's got a paint on, but he bought black and gold gear, which I thought was really fucking cool. And then it was just, it's not going to set the world on fire, but it was a great match to just set the tone for the show, like Mark said.
I know we were sitting on opposite sides of the ring on day two, and I had to leg it after the show to make my flight to Heathrow. But I did actually notice that straight away, like how much better his gold gear looks. It just looked really cool. It gave him a completely different feel and presentation. It made him feel more big deal, I thought, or something. I'll say it was obviously somebody who wouldn't be as familiar with his work. But yeah, that's something I was thinking at the time as well. And then following that, we moved on to LIJ. Sanada and Hiromu Takahashi faced the Young Guns, Ethan Allen and Luke Jacobs, in 14 minutes. The result came when Sanada beat Allen with Skull End. It was really cool to see Ethan Allen back, and I know he's now taking time to step away because he doesn't think his knee injury is right. But I've seen Luke Jacobs frequently with, he's obviously competed with Rev Pro and Progress and various different promotions. Every time I see him, I think he's incredibly impressive. Not only how physically he is and everything, his whole demeanor, how he interacts, like for such a young guy, and how fearless he comes across. But Ethan Allen, I thought, like, I had plenty of time to shine as well. I thought it was brilliant. I thought Sanada went really out of his way just from watching. Like he seems to be in the match for most of it, and he seemed to really go out of his way to let these guys, not let them, but like kind of let them express themselves and show how good they are in front of their home audience. I think I said at the top of the show, I thought Sanada, as a New Japan wrestler, for somebody I wouldn't have been as familiar with, he probably made the biggest impression on me. Just how professional, how good he is at literally everything. His whole presentation, how he looks, how he enters, how he interacts with everybody, be it from the meeting grade and in the ring, and then with the fans at ringside, kind of telling you he was shagged on the Saturday. I thought he was brilliant at this as well.
Yeah, like, it was great to see Ethan Allen back, because obviously he has been injured for so long. It's a shame that he has now had to step aside again, like pretty much immediately. But hopefully this New Japan booking does wonders for him long term. But yeah, I love Luke Jacobs as well. It's funny that he's the British Cruiserweight champion for Rev Pro, because in what world is Luke Jacobs a fucking cruiserweight?
Is
he not a 225 cruiserweight though? Is he not a super junior weight?
He's
on the edge.
See, he's slightly short. Like, so not to be rude in case he's watching this, but like he's thick, but like because of his height and stuff, I actually think he probably is around that weight mark. I'd say probably, and he's not overly like a muscular guy as well. He's just a guy who goes in there and just beats the piss out of you.
A lot of meat.
Yeah. No, it's why I love him. He's very smash mouth. I just love those guys that are just straight to the point. Just like Dan Maloney, Gabriel Kidd, and they had a great show in Young Guns. Like, they got put in with 2 top tier New Japan talents as well. Like it was kind of if you can't do well with Sanada and Hiromu, you're probably not gonna do well long term. But like they really they proved they belong with 2 of the top guys in New Japan.
Yeah, it was.
I
It
was
was
gonna say
Sorry, Andy.
World Tag. Well, I was gonna say World Tag League, but what do you reckon to the 2 young guys becoming the next 2 British Young Lions?
I'd be up for it. The interesting thing with that is that when you become a young lion, you're meant to start from scratch, aren't you? Like, Gabriel Kidd had been wrestling since he was fucking out of the womb, wouldn't he? Like, been wrestling since he was a kid. And he was quite over with the UK audience, popular. He beat Cody Rhodes famously, didn't he? In What Culture, I think.
Yeah.
And then he goes off with Shibata, and it's like, okay, now you start from scratch, and it's worked. Shibata's my all-time favorite wrestler. Like, I'm not gonna disagree with anything the man fucking says or how he trains his people. But yeah, whether they would want to or not. But because Luke Jacobs is clearly beloved by the RevPro audience, that's the best connection you could possibly have to get into New Japan from the UK. I'd be delighted to see them both in the New Japan ring in the years to come.
Like if they got offered to train under Shibata, just the stories, like obviously like how intense it is, but like the learning, everybody who's been part of that LA dojo working with Shibata, like I regardless of how long they've been wrestling already and possibly what like income or fame they may have to forego for the short term, I think it'd be hard to say no to that opportunity.
Yeah,
carry on.
Sorry, yeah. Off the back of that, then we had our IWGP Women's Tournament opening round match between Jazzy Gabera and Ava White. This was a lot better than the day before's match. I thought it's quite tough in the eardrums. I may say. Sorry, the best way to describe it. It was like it's like like a tennis match with the constant grunting and screaming at points, but it was. It was actually a lot better. It was Jazzy Gabera beat Ava White in about 10 minutes. She had like a Sayoto suplex to kind of finish it off. There was 1 or 2 kind of scary moments in the match. Yeah, where
fucking Ava White just dumped Jazzy Gabera like it was she had her in 90s All Japan Pro Wrestling Kobashi Kawada. It was fucking got me, man.
She had her in a pile driver and then forgot to do the pile driver and just dropped her on her head. And I was sitting right there. I was like, oh my god, she's dead. And then, but then I think Jazzy Gabera just got straight up and just dumped her on her head then, and that was the finish. It was, but the effort. I think a lot of people have thought that Ava White had got injured the day before or took a head knock or something because I think she came up to the ringside people beside right where we were. I was kind of clutching her face, so maybe she got a bang the day before or whatnot. But I thought the effort she put in really, really went out of her way to kind of really step up to the mark. Like she may not be at that level as of yet, but I thought over the 2 days and just from seeing her kind of around the British and European wrestling scene, she has a huge amount of potential. And for like people's perceptions of her, I thought she probably went a long way to kind of show that she's more than like an act as such. She can be a wrestler, and like she does have a lot of scope for improvement and progressing in wrestling. Might not necessarily be Japanese wrestling, but there are other avenues you can probably go down in the future. But yeah, I thought it was a good match. I quite bar 1 or 2 scary moments and kind of shrill shrieking at various points.
Yeah, no, like we said, I think the best thing Ava's got going for her at the moment is her look. She very much stands out, and she is very young into her career. So if she can put the pieces together, she's clearly doing something right because she landed this match. Like how many women in the UK scene would have killed to be in this position? Maybe Alex Windsor would have been there if she wasn't the TJPW champion, and TJPW starred in Bushiroad, yada yada yada. But yeah, no, I got the vibe at one point, but I've not seen anyone else say this, so maybe I'm fucking just an idiot. That at some point Jazzy Gabber was just like, "This doesn't work for me, brother." Like Ava White at one point, she goes to run, she gets ripped into the corner, and she does the old, throws herself off like the top ropes, legs over, and the person's meant to run under and stick their head under and all that. And Jazzy Gabbert just didn't do it. And then Ava White turns around, and Jazzy Gabbert's just in the middle of the rings. Ava White gave her like a little kick to the belly. And then shortly after the finish happened. So, maybe I'm just completely wrong, but just at some point it kind of felt to me like Jazzy Gabbert was like, okay, enough of this,
Yeah. Let's get fucking in it. Yeah, let's
get into it. This isn't going well. Like, Ava White does like a leg scissor thing, like Booker T style, that used to do off the ropes. And Jazzy Gabbert was not in the right position for it at all. So Ava White had to change and stop and everything. It wasn't the cleanest wrestling match you'll see. It wasn't very fluid, no.
No, but she'll be. I think Ava White will be an awful lot better for the experience those 2 days.
Yes,
and she will progress a huge amount of the back. But again, like it was, he kind of nailed the head there. That she was right in front of me at various different points where like moves weren't landing, but she was still going. Ah! just kind of screaming and shrieking, and like as if she would do like 20 different movements in the space of about 10 seconds, and every movement had the same grunt and groan. So she obviously was putting a huge amount into it, which is obviously commendable. But I think Jazzy Gabera, you probably are right in terms of after a while, I was like, all right, we're slowing this down, we're doing what I want now. Which I probably towards the end, aside from getting dropped on her head, accidentally probably added towards it. And I also noticed at the end of the match, aside from losing, Ava White visibly seemed to be quite annoyed. Possibly, I got the impression she looked to be quite annoyed at herself for possibly a mistake she made and the opportunity she had. But that was my kind of just individual takeaway. I haven't seen it again. I haven't seen anybody else kind of a similar view. But yeah, that was women's match. And then following the back of that, we then had the United Empire, Will Ospreay, Great Khan, Aussie Open, and Gideon Gray. They faced FTR, Ricky Knight Jr., Shota Umino, and Gabriel Kidd. This is a good match, really good. But it was United Empire came out all with their individual entrances, building up to like a crescendo where they all kind of stand in the ramp and put up their hand signal, and they came across like a rock band. And again, that kind of conquering, returning heroes kind of vibe. Again, and particularly off the back of the day previous, rather, with the Aussie Open and FTR, they both sets of teams, particularly Aussie Open, seemed like a 10 times bigger deal than they had previously. That was just to me anyway, and I thought a few people around me kind of felt the same. I really enjoyed that match, and like the amount of interaction they all had with the crowd around ringside, and the amount of interchange they had with the FTR and Aussie Open, the chants going back and forth as well, but also the amount of time the likes of Gabriel Kidd, Ricky Knight Jr., Shota Umino had in the ring, as opposed to just being the same kind of Will Ospreay, Dax Harwood every 2 minutes rather. 16 minutes 50 for that match. When Great Khan pinned Ricky Knight Jr., I think they were teasing towards the Great Khan possibly coming back to Rev Pro, possibly facing Ricky Knight Jr. for a heavyweight title down the line. That was my kind of takeaway from it at the time. Don't know what you thought, Kieran.
Yeah, no, I hope so. When Great Khan did get a pin, that was obviously my immediate thought as well. But he didn't go for the belt after the match. He didn't seem to tease Ricky Knight Jr., so I don't know. Although it does seem odd for RKJ to take the pin, considering he was the only champ, obviously FTR champions as well. But I suppose you don't want Gabriel Kidd to necessarily lose, and Shota Umino's a New Japan guy as well, so RKJ is the only choice. But yeah, it was just a fun ball to the wall 10-man tag, nothing too serious. Just lots of fun, explosive moments, big spots, because you've got all these crazy guys in the ring that are so talented. It's not anything. It was just a fun 10-man tag match.
Yeah, I liked how, like, obviously from the day before, Shota Umino had been essentially finished in a fight, how pissed off and how intense he was the following day as well. I kind of like that little iteration they had to it. And then I thought that obviously the star of the show again for this match was Gideon Gray. Just everything he did and being in the ring, outside the ring, he was like pleading with the fans at one point to help him and get him a towel and give him a water, and right in front of me. I think everything he does is incredible. I don't know how he hasn't been discovered for a larger audience before the last number of months, I suppose. Again, the pair of you obviously are significantly more familiar with me, but every time I've seen him now over those 2 days and kind of watching his content since then, I think he's absolutely incredible. Then following that, we went into our semi-main event. Not semi-main event. We had Tanahashi and Tama Tonga and Hikuleo face the Bullet Club again with Jay White, Anderson, and Gallows. Again, this is more or less the exact same match from the day before, without Jado and Gato. And it was kind of glaring that this was going to be the case. But it was a different finish today. It was about a 10-minute match again. Majority of the match was spent around interaction with the crowd, having that kind of pantomime feel. Gallows and Anderson every 10 seconds throughout the match, just going that to Hikuleo, obviously, who's just left the Bullet Club recently. But they were having so much fun. It was visible how much they're enjoying themselves. Carl Anderson was trying to get chants going, like Gallows the best in the world, or all this kind of stuff. Gallows is the GOAT, and all this. Yeah, it was like they seem to really they don't give a shit. They obviously don't care about being wrestlers, but they just want to enjoy themselves, everything they do. And that did translate across the match as well, I thought. The finish came when Tama Tonga pinned Luke Gallows with a gun stun. And then following the match, Hiroshi Tanahashi brought Hikuleo, Tama Tonga, and the Never Openweight title and IWGP Heavyweight title. Gave the Never Openweight title to Hikuleo and IWGP title to Tama Tonga, teasing that they'll be facing Carl Anderson and Jay White next, and that they're the kind of Tanahashi's giving them the push, like, you guys are you're going to take this forward. You're the two younger guys. You're going to guys to be challenged for these belts now, which was a nice touch. And again, it shows the kind of conscientious thought between everything they're doing in New Japan, which I thought was nice, and obviously going to lead into the match on Monday night between Tama Tonga and Carl Anderson.
Yeah, it was kind of a nothing tag match again, but I did like the finish. It was kind of the moment where happens in every tag match in New Japan, where everyone runs into the ring, does one match, that person falls out the ring, then they turn around and someone else hits them with another move, and that's all happening. Except it finished with Tama Tonga hitting the gun stun on Luke Gallows, and the gun stun's a great finish. Obviously, it's just the same as the RKO, but it's great as just a sudden finish, and you're never like, oh, well, that was a lame finish. It's such a good impactful move. And then it was really all about the post match. Carl Anderson and Carl Anderson and Jay White tried to run in a cheap shot. Yeah. Jay White and Jesus Christ, Jay White and Carl Anderson tried to run in a cheap shot. Tama Tonga and Hikuleo hits the choke slam on Carl Anderson. Tama Tonga hits the gun stun on Jay White, and then like Mark said, Tanahashi gives them the belts and they parade around with the titles. We know we've got Tama Tonga versus Jay White happening on Monday, and then they've since announced that Hikuleo is challenging for the Never Openweight title Battle Autumn Tour. I'm not sure which day or anything like that, but they just sowing the seeds for future title matches like they do in all tag matches, really.
Yeah, like much like the day before, it was good. It was good fun match, good pantomime kind of crowd interaction match, send the crowd home happy type vibes. Following that was Kazuchika Okada versus Big Teats Tito. Is it Big Teats Tito or
Big Teats?
Big Teats. Again, this is an 8-minute match. Okada won with the Rainmaker. Quick match. Okada his entrance seemed to be as important as the match itself. Like seeing Okada, his interaction, the robe he was wearing and whatnot. It's a good spot for Tito. You see that obviously has potential for doing huge things in New Japan. It was kind of a sudden, quick finish, quick match. But it was good to see kind of him in that spot, in that position. And hopefully that's a sign of things to come, how well he's held in regard in New Japan. It was enjoyable without having a huge amount of expectation. I think everybody kind of assumed that Okada would win. It'd be a quick enough, kind of simple enough match. And it was thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, the fact it was only 8 minutes was very surprising. I can't remember the last time Okada wrestled a match so short, if ever. And then, the next match does go almost 20, but I suppose that's a more important match in the grand scheme of things. Like it is Kazuchika Okada. He should kind of be able to put away a guy like Bad Dude Tito at this time quite quickly, I suppose. But you got everything you wanted. You got a Rainmaker reversal into like a Blue Thunder Bomb. You got a Rainmaker pose. You got him actually hitting the Rainmaker. I'm never a fan of when they send guys like all the way across the world and you don't get to see them hit their finisher. Like, it's always a bit weird to me. Like El Desperado in the opening match, he won with a roll up on Roll BX instead of hitting El Pinche Loco. It's like, come on, man, like give us that much at least. Someone can break up the pin, whatever, but give us the finishers.
That may have been in terms of Robbie X, as like a British guy didn't want to.
Yeah,
I don't know. Just something small like that, which might have been like a gesture on New Japan's part. But no, I completely agree. I love the way Big Tito hits that Blue Thunder Bomb. It's absolutely incredible. And then getting to see Okada's drop kick in person. Like I know Jameis and a few other our colleagues from our Body Slam team have done podcasts around drop kicks and numerous different podcasts about how good Okada's drop kick is in particular, which is fair enough. Fair play, Jameis. But yeah, I've seen that in person. How athletic, how clean, how crisp it was. It was brilliant. Then we're on to a semi-main and arguably the best match of the night. We had Tomohiro Ishii beat Yota Tsuji in 17 minutes. He won with the Brainbuster, which was an incredibly back and forth match and fought significantly more even contest than I thought it would be. There was huge, very close near falls throughout. I thought Tomohiro Ishii seemed to put in a huge amount of effort into this, and more so than I've been accustomed to when I've seen him live. I've seen him live in America, and sometimes you can, because he's an elder gentleman, he can sometimes appear to be going through the motions, but I thought he was absolutely incredible in this. The back and forth contest, it was quite rightly given a standing ovation at the end of the match. It was brilliant, thoroughly enjoyable. Again, I had zero expectations going into that and exceeded everything I had.
Yeah, I think I'm not as high on this as other people are, in all honesty. But it's good for the discourse. I think if you are very accustomed to and know the Ishii formula, it's exactly what you're going to expect. But the Ishii formula does work so much better in person because, usually a wrestler wrestles an Ishii style match, no matter who it is, you know what you're going to get the moments where Ishii's going to take a suplex and he's going to stand up from it and he's going to scream and he's going to charge in and they're going to suplex each other. But it sometimes I like fall in love with it and sometimes I'm like, come on. But like the last 5 minutes of this really got me, and it was when Tsuji really got going, when he was like trying to hit the spear but couldn't. He hit a tope of some type over to, like, you know, he pulled out a Hurricane Rana, which people are shocked to see because Tsuji is such a big guy. But he's always said that he wished he, like, when he was a young lion, every backstage comment he'd be like, "Send me to Mexico, send me to Mexico, send me to Mexico," and the poor fucker got sent to Portsmouth. You know, so he's incorporating this, and it makes him stand out so much. Like that, he's hitting a Hurricane Rana. That guy of his size is hitting a massive tope over the top rope. But yeah, I thought like the last few minutes when it really got going, when Ishii kind of it stopped being an Ishii match and it started becoming like them gelling more. I really loved it.
Yeah. Sorry, in the interest of full transparency to everybody watching this, at this point I had a flight at 10 o'clock from Heathrow Airport to get back to Dublin. And now being London, me being a simple man from Ireland, I wasn't aware that it takes 2 hours to get anywhere around London. So at the end of the conclusion of this match, I spent about 10 minutes or the remainder of my battery on my phone trying to learn off which trains I'm getting off at, which train station, which line, Jubilee, Victoria, Waterloo, and how I'm getting home to sunny Ireland in Heathrow Airport. So I had to leave at the end of that match, and then following that, the main event we had Naito against Zack Saber Jr. This is, from what I'm told, is a 21-minute match, and he, after hitting a series of Destinos, he earned a US title shot opportunity, and I've seen from photos online, he had a nice moment, send the crowd unhappy with the other members of LIJ. Now, Kieran, obviously, as I wasn't privy to, unfortunate enough to view it, what were your thoughts of this match? Was it a good fitting conclusion for the weekend? Was it surprising that Naito pinned Zack Saber Jr. in his home country? And what do you think like the end goal of this whole thing was?
I don't think it's surprising. I think people kind of did see it as it was always going to be Zack Sabre Jr.'s time to win and everything. But also, we've had Zack versus Ospreay a lot, like over the years in New Japan. Naito and Ospreay had an amazing match in the G1 this year, you know, and I kind of felt like they kind of held back for that as well, as amazing as that was. It was amazing. Like from the entrances, you know, Zack Sabre Jr.'s, you know, everyone's going crazy for him. Naito comes out in the full gear, the coat and everything. Naito's like telling Red Shoes to lift the ropes up for him so he can enter, and Red Shoes goes to do it, and Zack pulls him away. It's like, no, you're not allowed to help him. You know, the first 5 minutes literally are just them winding each other up, like we said, just back and forth, chatting shit, bickering. You can hear everything Zack says because it's such a small venue, and luckily I was front row. And then, you know, yeah, the match gets going. And like I say, I don't think there's not many wrestlers have better chemistry than them two. That comes from the way they interact to each other, to the actual wrestling itself. And they've got so much history. It was an amazing match. Like the benefit of being front rows, you can see Zack Sabre Jr. do his thing properly. You know, if you've got heads in front of you, it can be kind of difficult to watch a Zack match because so much of it is on the floor. Yeah. But no, they done it. It wasn't perhaps their best match. You know, if you've seen a Zack versus Naito match, you'll probably know what's coming with this one. What makes it different is the crowd. Huge "fuck the Tories" chant during the middle of the match. You know, Naito, of course, doing his where he pretends to do a dive and then he does a roll in the middle and he lays there and puts the fist up. Zack copying that and taking the piss and just flipping Naito off over and over instead. And I did like the ending. Like, yeah, it was kind of weird. You expected Zack to win, but Naito had done his best in English and he said, you know, did you enjoy both nights? Do you guys know De Hapon? Do you guys know the chant? And he's like, okay, let's do it all together, because he can't do it in Japan as well. He has not been down to do it for years. So I do like the fact they gave us that, especially because I was at Wrestle Kingdom 14, and you know, it was when Kenta interrupted the chant, and I'm sat there in my Tokyo Dome seat, I'm all excited, fucking like, yeah, Deha, what the fuck? So I got to join in a proper Deha Pon chant, and Naito clearly loved it. The crowd all joined in, and like you said, Hiromu and Sanada were there for it as well. It did really send the crowd home happy with that final chant.
Brilliant. Was there much shock in the audience around you, as I feel like you'd be more tuned in for the expectations of who's going to win that match? Was there kind of shock or like surprise in the audience when seeing Naito beat Zack Sabre Jr. in his homecoming? Maybe,
yeah. I mean, not so much around me straight away, but you know, it was never. Nothing is ever in wrestling, especially New Japan, you know, like definitive that this person is going to win. And I never felt it was the obvious case that Zack would win. I like the fact that he was getting this big hometown homecoming and he was in the main event, and that was kind of enough. And New Japan aren't going to throw their books to the side just because it's, you know, Zack's hometown, because it's someone's hometown. They think long term. And Ospreay versus Naito is definitely a lot more intriguing than another Zack versus Ospreay. like how many 5-star matches have they had? Like it's insane how good those two guys are together, but there's a lot of fresh material to be had between United Empire versus LIJ, between Ospreay and Naito.
Hugely agree with that. Sorry, yeah, Andrew, after you.
Massive. Give us your sugar score or star score for both nights.
Kieran, let you go first. Yeah.
I mean, I fucking loved it, man. I've been needing my New Japan fix. I'd say he's a four. Yeah, four sugars.
Yeah, I'd probably go the same. Like in terms of like the main event of night one, if I just saw that alone and nothing else, like that'd have been enough for me.
Breaking the sugar scale.
Sorry, excuse me. Yeah, exactly. That'd have been it would have been brown sugars and all sorts at that point. But yeah, again, I'd probably across both nights four sugars. That encompasses like how well we were treated by all the Rev Pro staff, everybody at the meet and greet, how well everybody interacted with fans beforehand, during the show, after the show. As a 2-day experience, like it was just good, clean fun, and like there was so many things as takeaways that like you were kind of buzzing with over the last week. For me in particular, anyway. Like I went into wrestling training a couple of days this week, and I was like, let's go. I love wrestling now. But it was absolutely amazing, and I absolutely loved four sugars from me.
Excellent. One last question. Robbie X, RKJ, Michael Oku. Do we think they could make a Super Junior appearance?
I think Michael Oku. Do you know what? Michael Oku, I never used to be a big fan of. Like, he didn't do it for me, and I've got to say, I've really turned the corner with him like the past year. Like, I actually really love him to bits. And I think he might struggle the most to get over with a Japanese audience, because I think so much of him isn't that he's great in the ring, but that's not where his like what makes him special. He's special because he can connect with the audience. And I wonder, can he do that with a Japanese audience that can't understand him, that doesn't have the history and everything like that? Whereas Robbie X is a bit more flashy. I'd say RKJ out of three of them would probably be the least likely for me. But out of all three of them, the one I'd want to see most is Michael Oku for sure.
Yeah, I'd probably say the same. Again, I saw Michael Oku at WrestleCon in Dallas. He was making an appearance there. He's very impressive in the ring, but I wasn't quite sure what to make of him. Like the appearances I've seen him since then, he has been incredibly impressive. And I think I'm a massive fan of Robbie X just from his kind of seeing him live with OTT so frequently. But yeah, I think either of those for me would possibly have the possibility of kind of going a bit further in the Super Juniors tournament. But Ricky Knight's so young as well, you wouldn't know how far he'll progress as well, and what his potential is.
Bang on. Right, now I'll try and get through the final night 3 of the WXW tournament. Kicked off with Michael Knight. Yes, you heard me correctly. Michael Knight is a wrestler in Germany. They love them some David Hasselhoff. He was facing Lawrence Roman, who is a member of Amboss. And Lawrence Roman came away with a big win here over Michael Knight via a crossface. Then it was the actual World Tag Team Festival Night 2 proper. CDK and the French and Pretty Deadly wrestled a 15-minute draw that got a standing ovation. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone for a time limit draw actually receive a standing ovation. It was just that bloody good. Massa is so great. So is Brooks. So is Maga. So is Ahura. Senza Volta and Gil Blanc defeated Eric Young and the Axel Tisca Sanity. And so with that win, they go through to the finals. We then had Tristan Archer come out, and Lavagna will finally come out and challenge him. They will be facing each other at the WXW anniversary show. Shigehiro Irie and Fuminori Abe were out once again. Extremely popular. They defeated Rotten Flot. Rotten Flot were eliminated from the tournament and had their tag team titles stripped from them because the winners of the tournaments go on to win the titles. Irie and Abe, again, another bloody standing ovation for their incredible performances. You then had Robert Dreisker and Icarus defeat Finances Forever. Once again, incredible match. Finances Forever have got so over with the German audience. They really appreciated their hard-hitting, violent style. They were just into every match. And as I say, standing ovation, another one. Masha Slamovich defeated Killer Kelly, and Masa Slamovich will be the second ever woman to compete in the 16 karat gold tournament, as Lufisto was the first to do it this year. Masha Slamovich will now be competing in the 16 karat next year after this win over Killer Kelly. Speedball Mike Bailey then took on young Hungarian superstar Peter Tahani, and Speedball Mike Bailey is so over everywhere you go. And I've never, ever heard anyone be out-cheered till I heard this match. The Peter Tahani, who's been just blazing a trail for Hungary across WXW for quite some time now, the audience have fallen in love with him. And there were more chants for Peter Tahani in this match than there were for Speedball Mike Bailey. I don't think I've ever seen that in my life. And they put on an excellent match, which Speedball Mike Bailey, of course, came away with the win. A quick fatal four-way for four of the women that competed in the Femme Fatale earlier in the weekend. Iva Koloski from Hungary, Ava Everett, an American independent wrestler, Orsi, who is another Hungarian, and Michelle Green, who comes from Switzerland. I think she's been making waves in America recently. It was a great little fatal four-way match that Iva Koloski got the win, and she'll be challenging for the Women's Championship at a later match. Then it was the finals of the tournaments. It was Senza Volto versus Agil Blanc against Robert Dreisker and Icarus of Ambos, and another phenomenal match. Robert Dreisker almost kills me when he speared Agil Blanc into the chairs. I literally got out of the way in the last second, or I would have been a very squished little boy. But I can't say how good the WXW as a whole. The whole weekend was so amazing. This show, the audience added so much to it because it was a smaller audience than night one and night two, but they made just as much noise. They literally gave every single match a standing ovation. They were into every little bit of the night's action, and I just can't believe how great of a weekend it was. Oberhausen is a lovely city. I spent 2 nights in Cologne as well afterwards, which was super amazing. I would give the final night a good 4 sugars and give the whole weekend as a whole 4.5 sugars, just because of how well I was treated, how friendly everybody was at the shows. You just such a great cooperative community of people who just went there to enjoy an amazing weekend of wrestling. And you had some guys like Darius, who made his wild card debut. He absolutely killed it. LJ Cleary had a fantastic match. I met O'Shea Edwards, and I had an old O'Shea Edwards top that I brought to the show, the Big Bad Kaiju, and he had seen me with a picture of it. It's a bit worn and whatnot, and he gave me a free T-shirt. So I cannot get over how amazing everybody really, really was, and just what an amazing weekend it is. I'm just going to let our producer know that we have finally wrapped up and finished this amazing review show. Thank you guys for coming on today. I really enjoyed listening to your guys' review of NJPW show. I look forward to being able to see it on NJPW on demand, of course, and the WXW shows are starting to become available on WXW now as we speak, and they will be available on the WWE network, I think, within 2 to 3 weeks. And guys, give out your details so people can follow you.
Yeah, after you, Kieran.
Yeah, at Kieran RH93, the third iteration of the at Kieran RH account after my war with TVSR here. And at Wrestle INN. I've got a podcast over there. Good group of people putting out podcasts and columns and features. Just a good vibes all around type place.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, thanks very much, Kieran, for going out of his way to give us this time this evening. I don't know, we went probably well over what we anticipated, but no, it was really decent of him, and thanks very much for his company last weekend as well. You can find me at WrestleMobs on Twitter if I'm not blocked by anybody. So yeah, you can find me in Fight Factory Pro Wrestling as well.
That's excellent. And of course, you can follow me on my details there. It's the at GBOtaku82, as well as the podcast at TNTightsPod. Don't forget to follow all the bodyslam.net contributors. There's some fantastic podcasts on our YouTube channel and on your Apple and every other place you find a good podcast, but also follow the Jonas Podcasting Network. It's an amazing group of typically British based podcasting community. And, but they do, podcasts for every bit way of American wrestling, independent wrestling, and professional wrestling. So, with that said, I think we're about wrapped up, aren't we?
All from me. Thanks very much again, Andy. Thank you very much, Kieran.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Cheers. Thank you very much.